Hi there, Scott here. I want to talk about Bandcamp versus Spotify. Two completely different things, but I want to talk about the things that I like about both and why I think they need to coexist and why we as independent record labels or independent artists actually need to have both. Okay, so I want to talk about five good things about each, and I'm unfortunately not going to talk about the bad things about each today. You can find somebody else to do that. But first, I want to encourage you to come to our website, otherrecordlabels.com, where we have a bunch of free resources for independent record labels as well as for DIY artists, including our new toolkit for independent record labels. If you're thinking about starting your own record label, we have stuff like how to start a record label checklist, how to start a record label workbook, a marketing checklist. We also have accounting templates and sample recording contracts. There's tons of stuff in there. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit to download that for free. I want to kind of address an issue here. When we talk about Bandcamp versus Spotify, we're actually talking about the passive listener and the active listener. A passive listener is someone who may not think too much about the music they're listening to, but they really love music. They love having music on in the background or while they're driving. Of course, they have their favorite artists, but they may not buy t-shirts. They may not go to shows necessarily or buy merch, but they love music and they subscribe to a digital service provider or a platform like Spotify or Apple Music, and they are still a music supporter. Then we have the active music fan. That'd be someone like myself who is very active in when a new album is coming out. I'm not usually surprised when a new artist that I love or an artist that I love has a new record coming out because I've been waiting for it for the past 6 months. I'll buy it on cassette and CD on vinyl. I'll buy the t-shirt. I'll go to the show. And so to me, there's the passive listener, and a lot of those people exist on platforms like Spotify. And then there's the active listener, and they exist on platforms like Bandcamp. And I really find it important to realize, especially as independent record labels or as independent artists, that both of those kind of help the other one exist. And so in a way, you're looking at receiving $10 from 10 different fans on Bandcamp, and then you're receiving $1 from 100 different fans on Spotify. $1 might be a bit high, but you get what I'm saying. It actually equals the same. And so I believe that it's important for us to serve both of those people, to respect our passive listeners and to appreciate our passive listeners, as well as to, of course, love and to serve our diehard active listeners. And so let's dive into a little bit about what I like about Bandcamp. Okay, here are 5 things I love about Bandcamp. First of all, you get a bigger chunk of the money. So when somebody gives you $10, Bandcamp on average takes about 15%. In fact, they even give you great opportunities for your fans to pay more if they want to. So there's a huge way for people to, some artists that I know and some labels, to make a living off of Bandcamp because those active fans can support them and you get a bigger chunk of the pie. And of course, we know how problematic Spotify is. I don't need to talk about that. You can just search Spotify on Twitter and you'll hear people complaining about that. But I love this about Bandcamp. And they actually even do occasionally where they'll give you 100% of the profits on these special Bandcamp Fridays. The other thing I love about Bandcamp is they have a great editorial team. And this is something that they've been doing for the past couple of years, where they will, if you submit to them, now you have to give them a couple of months notice, but you submit your release to them and they will listen to it. And then if it's something that they like and they want to share with their audience, then they will share that. And of course, that increases your exposure and increases your fan base and your sales. It's really great. They're also ubiquitous in the indie music scene. They are the home for most indie record labels, and they're the home for most indie music fans. So most people in the diehard active music fan community are familiar with Bandcamp, and that's great for us. They also, number 4, they also span so many genres. I love this about Bandcamp is you may think of indie rock when you think of Bandcamp, but the reality is that they have a huge platform for artists like in reggae and hip hop and lo-fi hip hop and bedroom hip hop, and bedroom pop is really popular, and lo-fi music of all sorts and experimental music. And then they have tons of records. Like there's an incredible bossa nova section and Brazilian folk music and Brazilian pop music, and just an incredible span of all sorts of different genres, not to mention noise and experimental and drone and ambient, all this cool stuff. they just span across all sorts of genres, and that's what I love about them. And number 5, and I mentioned this earlier, is that fans can donate to you. They can buy merch, they can message you directly, you can message them directly. I think that's incredible, and that option to pay more, if you enable that, is incredible because most people actually pay more. Unbelievable. Okay, let's talk about what's great about Spotify, because I really do think it's important. We have to understand that more people are spending money on music as a whole these days. And that has a lot to do with streaming platforms. I mean, our mom used to only every 10 years buy a Harry Connick Jr. tape at the grocery store checkout aisle, and that's it. And now mom is subscribing $10 a month to Spotify. So there are more people who are consuming music because of it. So let's talk about 5 things that I actually really appreciate about a platform like Spotify. Number 1, it's where everyone is. I mean, the reality is that if you combine Apple Music and Spotify is bigger, at the time of recording this, then that is a lot of music listeners. That's where a lot of people are. So when you share on Instagram or social media, you want to provide a link for at least for Spotify, because that's where so many people are. And it makes it really easy for people to check out your music. Of course, we know our diehard fans and our diehard active listeners are on Bandcamp, and they're going to get that little notification email from Bandcamp. But for the most part, Spotify is like the shopping mall. It's just where everyone is. It puts your music on the same level as major label artists. This is what I love about it, because, 20 years ago, most people bought music from a record store in a mall. And for us as indie record labels or indie artists, we couldn't get our music into record stores in the mall. We just couldn't do it. It was completely blocked off. We had to have a distributor. Getting a distributor was really difficult to do. And let alone we could never get those end cap displays, or we could never get our album into one of those CD samplers with the headphones that were preloaded. Remember those? Those are great. And so what Spotify does is it actually takes away that barrier, and it kind of levels the playing field. And it means that independent artists now get our music onto the same retail platform as major labels. And I think that's really cool. Of course, they have some more advantages like playlist placements and homepage takeovers, but I love that we can now get onto the most popular platform, whereas that wasn't the case 20 years ago. It's also, remember, it's affordable and accessible for a lot of people. Not everybody has a turntable or a cassette deck. Not everybody consumes music the same way we do as music fans. And so it's accessible for a lot of people. There's some families that share an account. There's students that get an account. And so that's what I love about it, is that there could be a 12-year-old who now has access to all of this music in the world, where when I was a 12-year-old, I had $20 every couple of months from my mom to buy a CD. And so I would have gone crazy with this when I was a kid. Playlists, number 4. Playlists are quite profitable. And if you can get on playlists, and we're not going to talk about this today because it's a whole other topic and it's very difficult to do, and it's very mysterious, but if you can get on a playlist, then it can actually be quite popular and profitable for artists. And that is the ultimate goal. And I'm hoping eventually that Spotify makes that process a little bit more transparent. And but if your music fits on a certain playlist, then it actually can be really good for an artist and generate some revenue for an independent record label or an independent artist. And the final thing that I like about Spotify is this culture, and it's still talking about playlists, it's this culture of listening to music based on your mood or based on an activity. Now, it's not something that Spotify necessarily invented, but it's something they definitely made popular, and I think I really like it. I mean, one of my favorite playlists is this playlist called Coffee Table Jazz. Now, I'm not a jazz connoisseur. I have a couple jazz records on my turntable, but I love this playlist, Coffee Table Jazz, because it really speaks to how I spend some evenings. I sit on the couch in my living room, put my feet up on the coffee table with a cup of coffee and a book, and so I put on Coffee Table Jazz. Now, some of you connoisseurs are probably scoffing at the idea, but I like it a lot more than radio. Radio was, regardless of if it was raining or not, they were just pumping out the same hit music all the time. And I now love that if it's a rainy Sunday in the summer, you can put on a rainy afternoon playlist, and it feels just a little bit more curated. So I actually like this culture, and for us active fans, we may not like the idea of somebody spoon feeding us music, but for some people out there, it's a great opportunity for them to discover music. If they're out walking late at night in the rain and they're listening to a playlist called late at night in the rain, or if they're on a road trip and they're listening to a road trip playlist, or if they're working out at a gym and they're listening to a gym playlist. That really suits their mood and suits their lifestyle. I think that's cool. And I think that's what I love about these two platforms. In conclusion, they can coexist because they serve two different groups of people. And it's okay if you are an active music listener and you have no interest in Spotify, and vice versa. So for us as independent record labels and independent artists, we need to make sure we're serving both types of listeners, the active listener and the passive listener. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit to download our free toolkit if you're interested in starting a record label, or if you're an independent artist who basically acts as their own independent record label, promoting your own music. Go to otherrecordlabels.com for all of our free resources. Thanks for watching.